Look who's here. We were waiting for you.
Hello, everybody. How are we doing?
Oh my gosh.
Voice.
Listen to that voice.
Rabbi, I have a
Yes.
question. Can you email to me the flyer you told me about for the shofar talk?
Yes. Yes.
The activities director needs it today or tomorrow. I sent you an email a few days ago.
Yes. Yes. I will make sure to get it to you today.
Thanks very much.
All right. Absolutely. How are we all doing? How's the summer?
It's
Fine.
good. Thank you.
Not as
How
good as yours.
Vacation.
How was
Seeing your
Maine,
pictures.
Rabbi?
Well,
How was
that was two, one at a time. I missed some of that. How was Sudi? I think you were asking how was the trip?
Maine, yes.
Beautiful, really magnificent. I mean, there's an expression that we say, "Ein Sor Kelokeno." There is no rock like God, right? Speaking to his stoicism and support, and the stability that comes from, in a sense, cleaving to God. But the Talmud then says, change the word sur to tsayar. Change the vav to a yud. Ein tsayar kelokino. There is no artist like God. Really, I mean, magnificent. Magnificent. If you have not seen Acadia National Park and really the drive that it takes to get there and back, you definitely got to do it. Along the East Coast, then the park and the vistas from the park, and then driving through New Hampshire and Vermont on the way back. It was like at a certain point we just had to stop taking pictures because it was just like, what are we gonna do with 200 postcard grade pictures? It's like, how can you not take the pictures and try to capture the beauty? It really was spectacular, remarkable. Although I will tell you that when you're taking kids through the hills of Vermont and New Hampshire, and the only way they were able to build this highway was because they were following the meandering river, so they didn't have to cut straight through. That's going to take a toll. Nausea was the name of the game for like 4 hours straight. But it is what it is, you know. You gotta pay the piper somehow. But it really was magnificent. It was arduous because of all the driving and everything. And I tell myself all the time that I'm not going to take vacations, but I need a vacation from the vacation.
And then you do it.
But I didn't listen to my own advice.
That's exactly what my friend just went for 2 weeks to Israel to see her family with her triplets and her husband.
Wow.
I said, if anybody's going to need a vacation after this vacation, it is you.
You know, there's a comedian. He says that family vacation is an oxymoron.
That's funny.
He says it's either family or a vacation. You can't have both. He says if you're taking the family on a vacation, he says when you stuff all the luggage into the car, he says first you buckle in all the kids, this one in the booster, this one in the bus, and you get them in their 5-point harness, and then you figure out all the luggage, and you stuff the luggage on the top, and then the luggage into the car. And he says, and you've got all the kids strapped in, you got all the luggage put in, you close the door to the back of the vehicle, and you're circling your way to the front, to the driver's seat. That period of time, that's the span of vacation. That's the span of the vacation. Once you open
That's
the door,
hilarious.
once you open the driver's seat, your vacation is the door to the driver's seat. Your
That's
vacation
so
is over.
true.
Well, anyways, yes.
I always say, and I get quoted a lot. It's so hard to have fun.
But you know what? The kids had a blast. We had a blast. We spent time with cousins and from both sides of the family, and so really it was very gratifying and much needed time, and to give the kids the time and attention, because Chami and I, if there's one thing that we feel bad about regularly is not being able to give the kids as much of our attention as we would like, and this is one of the ways that we are able. This is about them. It's about them having a good time, and having us to themselves. So I think
That's a treat.
yes, and so yes. So from that end, it hit all the right notes. And anybody else? Sorry, somebody else was.
I was just worried about your voice. Sounds bad.
Yeah. I don't know this. Well, part of this is my typical thing, and also I was just recovering from a cold, but on the mend, feeling good, feeling good. How are we all doing? How's everybody's summer been?
Terrific.
I'm coming for our holidays.
I heard we're very excited.
Jerry, really?
Yeah,
Great, Jerry.
Oh, that's exciting.
I'm happy.
Panim el panim. This is terrific.
Baruch Hashem.
Yes, now we get to bring in the high holidays with the right people.
Right. We'll thank Hashem and the airlines and everybody.
It's Hashem. Well, we're thanking Hashem now. We'll thank the airlines when they bring you over safely with your luggage.
Yeah.
Which nowadays is not a guarantee.
Right.
So we'll reserve the thank you for the airline when you.
Now you're making me think maybe I'll send a package to myself of clothes and stuff. What am I going to do on my holidays without any clothes?
You will be accepted no matter how you are. All right. Okay, shall we jump in?
Ken.
Okay, so we missed kind of 2 crucial weeks, really important stuff. Parshat V'etchanan, Parshat Eikev. So we will talk a little bit about this. We'll catch ourselves up with some of the classic ideas, stuff that I shared. I share pretty much every year, but it helps set up the conversation, because we have to understand that this is really segmenting Moshe's one long soliloquy, right? Moshe, from the beginning of the book of Devarim through to the end of it, is really engaged in one comprehensive speech. And so each parsha really, while all parshas are interconnected, and every parsha builds on the parsha before and leads into the parsha afterward, and is connected to every other parsha. So insight in one parsha gives you insight to all parshas and vice versa. This holds particularly true in the book of Devarim, which is one continuous narrative. And so really we can't explore Parshat Devarim without knowing a certain amount of Parshat V'etchanan and Parshat Eikev, which are the parshas that led into this, the parshas that we missed discussing last week and 2 weeks ago. So Parshat Devarim, we mentioned, the first parsha we mentioned, that Moshe does not shy away from reminding the people of their failures, because Moshe is a father figure, and a parent has to be a parent and not their child's best friend, which means that if a child has shortcomings, a parent can't say, you know what, I don't want to make my child feel bad. I want them just to have sweetness and light and positivity, and so I'm just gonna like poo-poo all the failures, and we're just gonna give them the old attaboy or attagirl and carry on. No. The job of a parent is to make sure that their child is doing their best, is achieving their best, is fulfilling their potential, is being a benefit to themselves and to society. And so when there are places that need improvement, it is incumbent on a parent more than any other to bring this to the attention of the child, because they're the one that the child will listen to most. They're the one that the child understands, cares about them, has the wisdom, knows them, etc., and importantly, truly loves them. And so when they are saying what they are saying so not to berate and to rebuke or to belittle, but to rectify and to help and empower. And Moshe teaches us how this is done. He does not shy away from saying it, but he doesn't have to beat them over the head with it. He doesn't cut them down at the knees. Rather, he hints to them as we talked about.
And yet the Nevi'im will do exactly that.
Say again.
The Nevi'im will do exactly that.
You're saying harsh rhetoric.
Yeah.
But they're doing so. But they're doing so in the moment. You see, that's the point. In the moment, we have to do whatever we can, and Moshe does in the moment beat them over the head. This is recapping, right? They're not in the midst of a sin. They're not right now going down the wrong path. At which point, we have to do whatever we can to shift them away from that, shock the senses, or as we do on Yom Kippur, as we do on
And as
Kippur.
Moshe did with the tablets.
As we said, the tablets and the tochacha, which we are going to actually have again later. But this is Moshe. The people are in a good place right now. They have matured. They're on the cusp of entering the land. So Moshe has to bring this to their attention. He doesn't have to have them veer away from mistakes they are currently making. He has to bring up failures of the past, which are potential failures in the future, but he doesn't have to belittle them with it. He just needs them to know what I know and you know what we're talking about. Let's keep this a positive process. Let's keep this a wholesome effort. So yes, the prophets and Moshe in the moment of the people doing the wrong thing have to say or do whatever it takes to wake them up and have them, the rumble strips and have them get back onto, right? If somebody falls asleep behind the wheel and starts veering off, you're not going to gently say, I have a little suggestion here, right? So we have to understand the context of the circumstance, right? But very quickly, because again, this is all about empowerment. This is Moshe bringing to their attention their potential failures, because as the old, as AA, the mantra of AA. My name is so and I am an alcoholic, not I was. If I made this mistake in the past, if we, the Jewish people, made this mistake in the past, and we, the Jewish people, can make this mistake in the future. And so therefore, we have to revisit it so we can learn the lesson. But importantly, very quickly, Moshe shifts to what it is, the tools we have to work with to, in fact, achieve our potential, to, in fact, achieve the perfection or the fullest measure of our perfection that we can. And Parshat V'etchanan introduced the big ideas of Judaism. That's why Parshat V'etchanan has, in one parsha, the Ten Commandments, the Shema Yisrael, and some of the most classic lines of Judaism, all in one, crammed into one parsha. Big ideas of Judaism. If I have to ask you, what are the kind of the biggest statements of Judaism? First or second are going to be the Ten Commandments and the Shema Yisrael, and both are in Parshat V'etchanan. Now, as we've talked about in the past, and is true here as well, the Torah Moshe engages in a kind of the comprehensive of fleshing out of an idea, or really having a three-dimensional understanding of the idea by establishing the contrasts. So Moshe talks about the big ideas in Parshat V'etchanan, but he very quickly makes the point that Yiddishkeit is not just about the big ideas. And so Parshat Eikev is, in a sense, the other end of the spectrum from Parshat V'etchanan. And Parshat Eikev and Parshat V'etchanan are the big ideas. Parshat V'etchanan are the small ideas. And it's, Parshat Eikev are the small ideas. And it's right there in the name. For those that were in Shul Shabbos, you heard this point, that the word Eikev contextually here means if. V'haya Eikev Tishma. And will be, if you will listen, then all the things, right? All the things will happen. But it literally does not mean if.
It's heel.
Right. It's an anatomical reference. It means the heel. How does that make any sense? And we said, V'haya ekev tishmu, and it will be on the heels of you listening, which is kind of a way of saying, and will be, if you will listen, right, then such and such. If this, then that, right? But why does the Torah, in fact, use such a strange word? Why couldn't it just use the word im? In fact, we are very familiar with a verse or a sentence by God that says, and it will be if you will listen. We say it every day, the second paragraph of the
V'haya im
Shema.
Shema.
V'haya im shama tishmu, right? We say this in the second paragraph of the Shema, which fascinatingly is in Parshat Ekev. V'haya im shama tishmu. So in that very parsha, we have the more obvious way of saying, and it will be if you will listen. So it's not like God forgot how to say it, right? He uses it later in that very parsha. And yet here he specifically uses Vaya Ekev Tishmun, and the entire parsha gets named this. And as I said, it's making the point. Vaya Ekev Tishmun, the commentaries tell us, and it will be if you will listen not just to the big ideas that we discussed in Parshat V'et but even the small nitty-gritty stuff. The stuff Adam dash ba'akevav, says the Talmud, that if you will listen to the details that most people trample on with their heels because they consider it insignificant and unimportant, right? Reminds me always of the study they once did, the kind of psychological study that they did in New York City. They put a hidden camera down at street level, literally on the ground. And in front of it, right in front of it, they put coins or money of various increasing denominations or decreasing. They put down $1 and they had a video camera trained on it. Everybody that passed by picked up the $1. Then they put down a quarter. Less people took the time to stop what they were doing. They noticed it and bent down to pick the quarter up. Dime, nickel. By the time they got to the penny, nobody stopped. The penny sat there lonely. Nobody picked it up. Nobody took the time to bend down and pick up the penny. Why? Because it's not worth their time and effort. It's too insignificant. And it will be if you will listen and pay attention and give your time to even the kind of stuff that is considered so insignificant by most that they just trample on it with their heel. And God's making a point in terms of the relation of Moshe. It's making the point in terms of the relationship we have with God. And as I've said about it, it's not in a sense the theme of this week's parsha, so we're going through this relatively quickly, but I did want to bring it up because we missed it last week. That this is the difference, this is the litmus test in the difference of your perspective on the relationship that you have with God. This, the little stuff, is going to be the litmus test. Why? What do I mean by this? There's two attitudes you can have towards the relationship you have with God. One is that it's a business relationship. I do for God, God does for me, and we're all happy, right? And if I don't do for God, then there's consequence, and we're all unhappy. But it's a business relationship. It's a glorified business relationship. 9 people out of 10 in the world view religion in this regard. To a certain degree, it's because they look at it similar to the relationship you have with government, right? I have a relationship with government. We all have a relationship, but it's also like a glorified contractual arrangement. I pay my taxes, I listen to the laws, and because of it, I expect that my government protects me, the roads and bridges, all that. There's government's the authority. I paid into that contract, and I expect that the authority will put out for me, this will yield specific and particular benefits to me. And I feel, and right, and it could be that either side doesn't hold true to their end of the contract, and either side would feel justified in taking action against the other one if one side or the other is not holding true to this contractual relationship. So this is the way it works with government. This is the way it works in a business. This is the way most people have their attitude toward religion, right? You do what the big authority, the big boss in the sky wants, and he will reward you. You don't, he will punish you. There will be consequences, right? So most people look at the relationship with God similar to the relationship they have with the boss, similar to the relationship that they have with any authority in their lives. God is Moshe is trying to cultivate within us. God, really from the get-go, and Moshe as our counselor in this, our guide, our shepherd, is trying to teach us how to perfect a very different type of relationship with God. A loving relationship. A relationship with God that is not contractual, it's not business. It's not, I'm going to put in because I want something out from it. But because I love God and God loves me. And in a very real way, I am not measuring my investment in the relationship by what gets me the most out of it. As our attitude should be with any loving relationship. And unfortunately is the reason that a lot of relationships fail, because many people approach a loving relationship in the same way they approach a business relationship, a contractual relationship. I'm going to invest in it because I expect something out of it. And if I feel I'm not getting out of it enough, then I'm calling into question the relationship, right? You hear this kind of language that people are speaking. It says, I don't feel like I'm getting enough out of this relationship, right? Right there's the problem. The next question shouldn't be, well, why do you feel that you're not getting enough out of the relationship? But rather, why do you feel that this is a relationship that is all about you getting something out of it? A loving relationship has to be far more essential than that. Your greatest joy and pleasure should be what you're putting into the relationship, not what you're taking out of it. And the same holds true with God. The reason I serve God is not because of the big fat reward I'm going to get. I have a reminder that, by the way, this will be the last time. I actually meant to take care of it earlier. Apologize. A lot of things piled up because of the time we took off. But we will have the premium Zoom account, and so we won't be kicked out
Oh,
after 10 minutes. But we're going to have to do this one more time. One last
no
time.
problem.
When you get kicked out, everybody log back.
Anybody else?
All right?
Don't worry, Diane.
And please, somebody do me a favor. When we get to the end of the class, remind me that I need to upgrade, and I'll try and take care of it right away. Either way,
Wait, should we tell him what we're doing?
Yeah, Rabbi, Diane and I were going to gift you an upgrade.
I was going to bring
He was
over.
going to come over today and give you a check.
all right, thank you. Thank you. All right. That's why I held out. That's why I held out.
We wanted to surprise you, but we couldn't get into your account. That was the problem.
But this was just as good and very much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So thanks to Diane and Jerry. We're going to not have to deal with this again. Okay. But back to the matter at hand until we
Do
get.
we have to get off now?
No, it will automatically kick us out.
Oh,
And then we'll I'll log
That's
back
some
in.
nerve.
Bang!
Yes. Quite an abrupt host. is this Mr. Zoom. But anyways, so what can you point at in strategy, as it were, in approach that indicates what your perspective about this relationship, whether you are viewing any relationship as a business relationship or a loving relationship? What can you point at a particular strategic approach that would be different if you are viewing something as a business relationship or as a loving relationship? And the answer is yes.
I think
yes.
one of the things is you would always give the other person, if you're in a loving relationship, you always try to give the other person the complete benefit of the doubt.
Yes, true, but I'm trying to speak more in generalistic terms. And
How about time?
Is that
Time limits.
possible? I just want to know, has anybody had one like, well, I know you have, Rabbi, but I'm
Yeah.
just curious.
Look, we all work at it. Nobody, it's not a switch. You don't flip the switch. We're all working at having good business relationships and good loving relationships. But here is a strategic difference. In a business relationship, you will be most successful in a business relationship if you know how to identify the big things and the small things, prioritize the big things, and give them precedent over the small things. That is a successful business person. Because too often times what happens is a business is failing because the guy or whatever is worried about the windows, the window dressings, while the main product is mediocre, right? Or the make sure that the sign in front of the store is nice while the fruit on the shelf are rotting, what have you. A good business person knows how to focus, knows how to identify what are the big things, and to give them his primary focus and attention. And obviously then get to the small things in order. That is true about a business relationship. About a loving relationship, the small things are big things. The small things, you are, here's the point. Remembering the anniversary, that's a big thing. And of course, it's important that you remember the anniversary, but to a certain degree, with that, you are not projecting your investment in the relationship. But if it happens to be that your spouse has a pet peeve about the toothpaste cap on the toothpaste, right, being put back on the toothpaste, this is an objectively small thing, right? It's a bit of toothpaste. Who cares? And you would be objectively correct to turn to your spouse and say, get over it, right? But in a loving relationship, the little things are the big things. Because
Rabbi, I think you once gave an example of that your spouse wants a meal, so you make steak because they like steak. But that doesn't matter because you didn't make it well done. You made it, rare, and that's not how they like it. So.
Right. Well, in other words, I mean, lots of examples. I think right. I'll give you another example. The Rebbe, somebody once came before a business trip to get a blessing from the Rebbe for success. He was traveling to Europe on a business trip, as he would often do, and he came to the Rebbe for a blessing for success and safety on his trip. The Rebbe gives him the blessing, and then the Rebbe says, I'm sure you are planning to buy souvenirs for your family. And he kind of tilted his head, like surprised that this would be something, the Rebbe, there's the spiritual leader of world Jewry, and somebody whose mind is in the holiest of things. Whether the Rebbe has does he have some sort of controlling stake in the tchotchke industry? Like, why is the Rebbe so concerned about him picking up souvenirs? So the Rebbe noticed his kind of puzzled look, and the Rebbe says, It's not about the particular tchotchke, the particular souvenir. It's the statement that you are making that while you were there on the other side of the world, involved in your business or whatever it is, you were thinking about them. This is the way you show solicitude. You show, I know you, I care about you. I'm not just focused on what the objective big things are. I am focused on what is something important to you, even if it's objectively a small thing. Because I am in love with you. So whatever is important to you, even if it is a small thing, to me, it's a big thing. This is what separates. This is how you indicate that this is a different type of relationship. The small things become big things. Anybody can do the 10 Commandments and the Shema Yisrael. But one who is in a deep committed relationship to God is doing the little nitty gritty halachic things of making sure to say 100 blessings a day. Not 98, not 99, 100, which is actually in Parshat Eikev. The message, because it comes from a quote in the Parsha, and Israel, and now Israel, Ma Hashem Elokecha Shal Meimach. What is it that God is asking of you? And King David says, don't read it Ma, don't read it what, but Mea, 100 things, 100 blessings. Each one a small, little, insignificant, little nothing of a blessing. Takes you 30 seconds, 10 seconds. How long does it take to make a blessing? 10 seconds. You're picking up an apple. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei pri ha'etz. How many seconds? 5 seconds. 100 times a day, you do these little small things for God. These little, small, big, important things. So while Parashat V'etchanan are the big things we do in our relationship with God, the big ideas, the faith and the 10 Commandments, Parashat Eikev teaches us you really want to separate this relationship. You really want to make this something unique and special. You want to show how unique and special. It's not just about the big things. It's about the little things. In this relationship, the little things are big things. So that's Parshat Eikev. All right?
Yeah, that's good.
Now we get to Parshat Reeh. Right?
By the way, I want to remind you that I once I sat through a lecture with you on how the ekev is the most important part of the body.
Right.
That's okay. You don't need to go there.
No, just mention that you have the V'etchanan would be about the head, right? 10 Commandments, etc., etc. Eikev is the heel. It's significant, right, as we've talked about. Yeah, except the heel, the head can't. And that is the absolute magic and wonder of the heel. No, just kidding. I'm not going to do that. No, but the heel, as I said, is the lowest part of the body. And the head, which is the most significant, right? In fact, in English, heel is a derogatory way to refer to somebody. Oh, you're such a heel, right?
I never knew
Yet,
that.
think about it. When Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, what was the first part of the human anatomy that ever touched the moon?
His heel.
The heel. When you arrive in any place, the first thing, the first part of you to touch down is the heel. When you walk, you don't walk and touch with your toe. You touch with your heel.
Unless you're a ballerina.
Yeah, yes.
No, he's saying he's not so sure.
No, Les, think about it. Try to walk in any other way and see if it feels natural. The first place that touches down in any progress you make, the first part of you that makes that progress is the heel. It's the vanguard of you. It's the vanguard of your progress.
It's the opposite for me.
You go in head first?
No, when I come down the steps and I come down to the landing, my toes or the balls of my feet touch first and then the heel.
All right. Okay, but what I mean when you're walking,
And I think for Neil Armstrong, probably the same thing.
correct. Taking steps down. So let's not use the Neil Armstrong analogy
That
to
fell
such
through.
detail.
But even going up for an Aliyah,
Not even going up for an aliyah. When you take a step forward,
the balls of your feet touch first. But I'll leave it for another time.
no, when you take a step, which part of you touches down first?
Yeah, you heal.
The heel.
The heel, the vanguard of your progress. We say in English and in Hebrew that progress, we call that a mahalech. That progress is done when your feet are the way you make your progress, and specifically the heel. And it's specifically why the heel? For the very reason that the heel, because you look at the heel and say it's insignificant, it's callous, it's numb. That numbness actually is what allows it to be, right? It can support all the weight. If you think about the majority of your weight is on your heel, not on your toes. That's why ballerinas are so special, because they can, for a significant amount of time, put weight on their heel. For the most part, on their toes, we put in the heel, whatever it is. This is to get to Jerry's point about how the heel all of a sudden plays a significantly greater factor in our lives if we just pay a little bit more attention to it.
But when we are trying something, we like going into the swimming pool, we dip our toes.
But why? We dip our toes because we want some feeling.
Right.
We want to be able to test the heat or the coldness, and the heel is kind of numb. That same numbness is what gives it its great advantage. It's why you can take a hard step. Could you imagine how painful and exhausting eventually it would be to walk if every footfall landed on the balls or the toes of your feet? How long do you think you would be able to walk in that fashion if you were making your progress with the toes first, as it were, rather than the heel? Either way, again, but as we said, this is not the focus of the conversation. But all of a sudden, the heel, it has value in a way that I think we took for granted, and have to revisit. Now, the study in contrasts continues with this week's Parsha. Parshat Re'eh. Anybody want to tell me in what way is this Parsha opposite from the Parsha that comes before, or contrast to the Parsha before? Va'et Hanan to Akev. We said big ideas, small ideas. Akev to Re'eh.
Well, Re'eh is famous for Lo Tavashel Gedi B'Chalev Imo. So that's pretty specific. That's pretty small. It's
Right.
huge
So
in a
let's see.
big sense,
Yes,
but
it happens to be what you're saying ties in, but expanded out to more general thing. And it's pretty obvious from the very in the very beginning. Very V'haya Akev Tishma'un.
Oh, it's about seeing.
Last week's parsha it says, and it will be when you will
Here.
listen, right? When you
Listen.
will listen. V'haya Akev Tishma'un. And this parsha begins with Re'eh.
Seeing.
Last week was about hearing or listening. This week is about seeing. Now, these are both metaphoric references, right? Listen doesn't mean we're not checking your audio capacity, right? And it will be when God will bring you in for an audio test and you will verify how good your eardrums are working, right? When we say tishmun, we're not talking about your physical ability to hear. And when God says re'eh, see, he's not talking about your physical ability to see, right? God is not your ophthalmologist, right? Rather, these are both metaphoric references. And yet last week, God chose to say it in the way of listen. And this, we said, see, right? Now, these are oftentimes interchangeable, right? I can tell somebody, right? I can say to somebody, you hear, right? You hear what I'm saying, right? Or do you see what I'm saying, right?
It's understanding.
Right. They seem to be interchangeable. Yet last week, the big focus was on Tishma'un. Not once, but twice, right? Vaya Ekev Tishma'un, Vaya Imshon Moa Tishma'un. And this week, the name of the game, the name of the parsha is Re'eh, see. We could have said the same thing, Shema, right? Re'eh ani noten lifnechem, or Shema ani noten lechem. Listen, I'm putting before you, right? Re'eh. So clearly, although they seem interchangeable, they are not. And last week we're deliberately saying, listen. And this week we're deliberately saying, see. Both elements are necessary. It's not good enough to listen. You also have to see. It's not good enough to see. You also have to listen. Each one has a particular advantage. And the advantages are going to be tied with their metaphor, right? So if I had to ask you, what are some advantages to seeing over hearing and hearing over seeing? Let's start with hearing, because we want to focus on this week's parsha, talk about obviously the big points of this week's parsha. So what would be some of the advantages to hearing over seeing, and then we'll do seeing over hearing, which is what this parsha is about.
It could be a sound that you don't get when you're seeing, but you hear it.
Right. Okay. So obviously there are things.
A warning, a danger warning.
Mhm.
Right. Right. But I would say more.
But you, if you hear something, you can reach someone's intellect by explaining.
Okay. You see, this is where I was heading. More not in the specificities of things that are, either only seen or only heard. But if, let's say, I have the choice of mediums, I can either take in a concept or idea through hearing, or I can take it in through seeing. A tape or a film, right? What would be an advantage of tape, an audio tape, versus a film? Taking in this particular um, experience through the medium of listening, and taking in this particular concept or experience through the medium of seeing. What would be the advantage to hearing or listening over seeing? And so Jerry started on it. When I see something, I see it kind of superficially, right? There's a certain disdain that people have, real, um, you know, you have a book, right? Some classic work. If somebody says, "Yeah, I didn't read the book, but I saw the movie," right? Right? There's a certain disdain for that. Oh, you only took it in visually. You have to read the book. Reading a book is kind of like hearing, taking it in through listening, because you're kind of reading it to yourself, right?
But-
What is the advantage in that way? So Jerry says there's a certain comprehensiveness that comes with listening to something versus seeing something. There's a certain depth to it. There's a certain um, 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 amount of focus and attention, right? This is and a certain amount of if you think about it, there are certain ideas, and here's a proof. Why do we cover our eyes when we say the Shema? right? Shema, listen, and we cover our eyes. We deliberately block our sight in order to absorb the Shema. And we do this with many things. We deliberately close our eyes when I really want to get into the moment, right? I close my eyes. I block my ability to see because there's a certain comprehensiveness, a certain depth of an experience that sight can get in the way of. Sight is superficial. I see things on the surface. And if I really want to comprehend an idea, I need to kind of close my eyes to concentrate. I close my eyes to concentrate. Right? Which one of these, look at, which one of these faces that I'm about to present indicate greater concentration? Or
The hearing.
when well, the one where I have my eyes closed, because at that point I am taking the sense that is my superficial sense, like even when I want to smell a rose, right? I really want to appreciate the smell. What do?
Close your eyes.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
So we see that because my eyes can be distracting, because my eyes kind of stay on the surface. My sight stays on the surface of things.
Rabbi, I think we talked last time about, that blind museum in Israel. And
Right.
the guy wrote a whole article about how his guide was somebody who by the end of the trip wanted him to be his father or his brother. He was just so in love with this guy. He was so brilliant the way he was describing things. And when they came out, the guy who was blind was just somebody who he could just tell, but if he had seen him, he would have never approached him. He would never have become his friend. He wouldn't have exchanged one word.
Right. There's a museum in Israel, which is a remarkable museum, because what it is it's a pitch black place. And the docents that take you through the museum are those that have been blind from birth. They're your guides through the museum. And it gives you an experience of what it's like to live life when this all important faculty of sight is unavailable to you. And how the experience of life is an entirely different experience, and no less rich, in fact, in ways even richer, because everything becomes more comprehensive. And when you listen to something, you have to listen to it step by step, right? When you look at something, you see it in a second, myriads of details. And when you listen, you have to listen step by step, right? Which is why to read through a book versus watching the movie, or if you experience a moment, right? You live a moment. To then describe it to somebody is going to take exponentially longer than it took for you to experience it. I see something, right? I see a picture of a rose. Now if somebody shows me a rose, turns over a picture for a second. I look at it, turns it over. And then they say, now describe it. It's going to take me exponentially longer to try to impart the details. Now, having said that, where is it going to remain longer? If I show somebody briefly an image, or if I take the time to absorb it audially, then to listen, which is why when I want somebody, when I'm asking somebody to really comprehend an idea, what do I say to them? Do I say see, or do I say look, or do I say listen?
Listen.
All of these are the advantages of Tishmon. Listen to the messages. Listen to the lessons. And yet this parsha opens up with see. So what is the advantage? If we're talking on this level, we're talking about kind of this nuanced level. then what is the advantage to seeing over listening? If we just talked up all the advantages to listening over seeing, that listening is more comprehensive, it's more in depth. It will oftentimes leave a longer impression.
Well, you can see beauty with your eyes.
Okay.
Well, you know what they say, seeing is believing.
Very good, Les. That's right.
That's a good one, Les.
Jerry says that dynamism, right? The beauty, the dynamism. You can have beauty in, but when we feel bad for somebody who can't see, right? If we had to lose one of our
Faculty.
Senses.
right? Faculty senses, I think the one we would want to part with least is our ability to see, right? To lose our sense of taste, many people lost it in COVID. We lost the sense of smell, many people lost, and they're carrying on life. Sure, it stinks, but well, for those that lost their sense of smell, I guess it doesn't stink. But that was a very bad pun. But either way, the point is that sense of smell, sense of taste, these are hard senses to lose, but life goes on. It's not crippling. Sense of touch, that could be dangerous, whatever. But hearing, that's a hard one to lose. Sight, I think that's the one that people would say, right? And I think it gets to that point. Jerry was saying the beauty and dynamism of the world, the way we take that in most is through sight, colors, and pictures and forms, right? So, no doubt. But when we're talking about concepts, to see a concept versus hearing a concept, we made a very good argument that when it comes to concepts, the trait that is the prime trait is listening. But then Les just threw in a curve and want to explore that a bit. If you were in a windowless room, and I set out and I explained to you, I made a very solid argument that it is night right now. You slept long, you don't really know. The time has passed, the shift change, whatever it is right now. Do you think I can probably convince nearly anybody in a windowless room that it is night? If I have a really good ability to argue and make my case, how hard would it be to convince nearly anybody that it is night right now?
Nobody.
Pretty
It'd be
easy.
hard.
What?
It wouldn't be hard if there was a windowless room.
Right. If it was a windowless room, it wouldn't be hard. What would make my argument go out the window 100% of the times, no matter how well I made the argument? Somebody pulls up the shade, right? Or somebody opens a window. And what do they see? They see the sun shining brightly. I see it, right? If I made
with my own eyes.
Right. If I made an argument to you that according to the laws of physics, a bumblebee cannot fly. You've never seen. If I told you there was this creature that has this amount of mass, this kind of wingspan, and it flaps its wings or flutters its wings, whatever, X amount of times, and if you did the mathematical calculations, that bug, that insect cannot fly. That's what I would tell you. Could you believe that there is an insect that cannot fly, even though it has wings?
Yeah.
And if I made the mathematical equation to you, a comprehensive, detailed equation, would you believe
you would
me?
listen and you would believe.
You would listen and believe everything I said. And what would happen the first time you actually saw a bumblebee fly? All that would go out.
You would say, don't believe your lying eyes.
Right. And we know how often that has worked.
Yes.
Because, in fact, seeing is believing. The word in Kabbalah for this, in this discussion, is hitamtut. There is nothing that makes something more true to me than my seeing it. I may not even understand it, right? I don't understand. Here, this guy just gave me a whole comprehensive explanation as to why, according to the laws of physics, a bee cannot fly. A bumblebee. I am now an expert in the comprehensive physics of the bee. And then I see it fly. And all that knowledge and all that comprehensiveness goes right out the window. And I don't understand it, but I know it's true. A bee, a bumblebee can fly because there it is flying in front of my eyes. Sight, in a sense, speaks to the ability to transcend what it is I understand or don't understand and have something be truth, even if I don't fully grasp it. And that is why Les said, seeing is not understanding, seeing is
Believing.
believing. And this is what God says. Don't just engage in your relationship with God in a level of comprehension and understanding, but in the level of seeing and believing. A reality that goes beyond my comprehension. See God. Don't just understand what you can't understand about Him. See Him, believe in Him beyond what you understand and comprehend. Look at the world around you. Abraham didn't comprehend at the age of 3, but what did he have? He saw God. He saw God in the world around him. He said, this world, everything I'm seeing, this is not random. I don't understand how it works, and I don't understand the parameters of God, but I know God exists. I see God. I'll give you an example of what I mean, because this is a very nuanced idea, but we'll finish here. There's a lot to talk about on this. The Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, once had his grandson, would eventually become the third, the successor to the successor, otherwise known as, eventually would become great in his own name and become known by his magnum opus, the Tzemach Tzedek. His name was Menachem Mendel. In fact, the Lubavitcher Rebbe that we all know of our generation was named after his great-great-grandfather, who was this Tzemach Tzedek. You know? So this little Menachem Mendel, the Tzemach Tzedek, was sitting on his grandfather's lap. And he was very content. And he was kind of stroking his grandfather's beard. And he was sighing contentedly to himself. He was saying, Zayda, Zayda, Zayda. So the Alter Rebbe kind of looked down and wanted to probe him a little bit, probe his grandson, and said to him, he said, Who is Zayda? Where is Zaidi? Where is Zaidi? So the little boy kind of got a puzzled look, like, what does his grandfather want? So he pointed to his face. He pointed to the Alter Rebbe's face. He pointed here. He said, name. So the Alter Rebbe said, no, that's Zaidi's head. But where is Zaidi? And so then the boy pointed to the middle of his grandfather. And the Alter Rebbe said, no. That's Zaydi's heart. That's Zaydi's heart. Where is Zaydi? So the boy kind of gave up. He understood what his grandfather was asking, but he didn't have the right answer. Anyways, the Alter Rebbe goes off, goes to a different room, does his thing. All of a sudden, the little boy cries out and says, Zayda, Zayda. So his grandfather comes rushing into the room and says, What, my grandchild? And the boy turned triumphantly and says, there's Zayda. And the Alter Rebbe smiled and says, Yes, that's in fact Zaydi. What was the point? What was this exchange? The Alter Rebbe says, You're stroking me contentedly. My beard, these are all, this doesn't define me. This is my head, this doesn't define me. My heart, this is my heart, it doesn't define me. My beard doesn't define me. Who am I? Where am I? One to see, does this child truly understand? On a level beyond understand. And when the child called out for help, and his grandfather came rushing into the room, he says, There you are. This is beyond specificity, it's beyond comprehension. This is bigger than that. This is more essential than that. It's about belief and faith. It's something you see. It's not something you understand. The fact that I wake up in the morning and I can't necessarily define for you God's presence, but I know, I recognize, and that's probably the best word to use here. Seeing, when it comes to a concept, is the word recognize. That's what the parsha is saying. Don't just understand God. That's last week. Vaya ekev tishme'un means to understand. And then this parsha says, upgrade the understanding, or don't just suffice with an intellectual or conceptual understanding. Recognize God. See God. Now that's a more nuanced thing. That's not textbook. But in the way that this child recognized Zaydi, it wasn't about his head, it wasn't about his heart, it wasn't about his beard, it wasn't about his strong arms or his legs. It was he recognized Zaydi. That's Reeh. See God. See him. Don't just understand him. See him. Recognize him. Obviously, there's a lot to explore on this, but I hope that's already gives us
Oh, that
something.
was pretty deep. You came off the mountain in Maine and you were all charged up.
Yes, there we go. So I had my spiritual moment, but but think about it. Think about it a little bit. Those that are here Shabbos will discuss more on this, and we'll pick this up next week. It's just that we're kind of at the end of our time here, but ponder this concept. What does it mean to not just understand God, but to go one step beyond that and recognize?
We had a lecture, Lois and I had a lecture from Rabbi Marcus about the difference between belief and trust. And he talks about that a lot.
Yes.
But it's one or the other that he saw when the Zaydi appeared. He had the belief and the trust that he would be there.
Right. Well, belief and trust. You see, trust is a little leaning towards the comprehensive, and the
knowledge.
Belief
is.
So yes, I'm saying and each one has its advantage. Again, seeing has its advantage, hearing has its advantage. But when it comes to God, it's basically the difference of understanding comprehensively and recognizing. And each one of them, one is more understood and one is more real.
Yeah.
And play with that a little bit in your mind, and it's something to continue probing. All right, everybody. Wishing
Thank you,
everybody
Rabbi.
Thank you,
Shabbat shalom.
Rabbi.
See you I'm gonna see you before then.
Yeah. All right.
I'm gonna be,
Thank you, Rabbi. Good Shabbos all.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbat shalom.
I'll be by Friday morning.
Diane's doing the most important thing, the little thing.
All right. There you go. That's right. All right.
All right, I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. All the best. Bye,
Okay,
guys.
bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.